let's start here. History was made when entries for the 2026 Comrades Marathon sold out in record time, just under 10 hours. The 22,000 entry cap was reached before 8 p.m. on Monday, shattering the previous record set in 2020 when entries took 3 days to sell out. With the demand at an all-time high, the race says they are already investigating ways to ensure the 100th edition in 2027 will give as many runners as possible a chance to enter the 90-kilometer race.
The demand is actually there already for the 100th edition. We're getting lots of inquiries already from runners, and we haven't even got into the 99th edition. So the excitement is there, lots of runners, if you think of your Green Number Club runners that have already expressed their excitement and interest to basically come out of retirement to do the 100th edition. And then you also have lots and lots of thousands of novices that want to attempt and achieve a finish at the 100th edition. So we are working tirelessly behind the scenes, effectively planning 2 races simultaneously at present, the 99th and the 100th edition. And with that, the 100th edition is going to come with all sorts of additional traditions and smaller events and functions that are going to be taking place. It's going to be a super special week and race weekend. So lots on the go there. And of course, one of the strong considerations that we are looking at is how many participants we can safely have for the 100th edition, because we know that the demand is going to be way more than what we've ever seen before. So we need to seriously look at that so we can try and give everyone an opportunity to try and participate in the 100th edition. However, our 2 main priorities are always runner safety and, of course, spectator safety as well. And secondly, the runner experience, because runners need to be able to enjoy the race as well and not worry about things like congestion, etc.
And now joining us to reflect on this milestone is Comrades Marathon Association Chairperson Mqondisi Ngcobo. Apaloba, a very good afternoon and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Kwena, and good afternoon to your viewers.
I guess a milestone as far as Comrades Marathon entries are concerned. Was this a surprise for you as the Comrades Marathon Association and organizers?
Look, we had always thought it was going to take about 2 to 3 days for us to reach the entry cap, but this was a pleasant surprise to have to do it within 10 hours of opening the entries at 10 o'clock on Monday, and by 7:45 the same evening, all the entries were taken up.
There was also a decision to move it from 24,000 to 22,000. Tell us about that decision, why the CMA decided to go that route.
It was for 2 decisions. One, we're looking at factors like safety, runner safety on the day, and obviously the enhanced runner experience. You remember that Pietermaritzburg, unlike Durban, in terms of the infrastructure, the road management system, and all of those congestions, you do find a little bit of congestion when you consider everything on the day, especially with the spectators and all our stakeholders descending on the city of Pietermaritzburg. So it was important for us to ensure that we look at safety issues and decrease the number of the cap from 24,000 in 2025 to 2026 as we're doing the uprun.
And I can only imagine for the 100th edition, the excitement and the interest that will be generated for that particular race.
I think even when you look at it, when we started in November, we started with what we call Vision 2027. And part of what we're doing is that we're going to use the 2 editions of the race, 2025 and 2026, as the dress rehearsals for 2027. And we were pleasantly surprised to realize that the interest that has been generated is not going to start next year. It starts now. So as we prepare for 2026, it's going to be very important for us that everything that we're doing, including the innovations and the changes that we are going to introduce, including some of the innovations that we introduced in 2025. You remember that we had a 2-start in Pietermaritzburg. And we had 2 finishes. We finished in a street finish for the first time in the history of the race. So some of these changes are going to have to be important for us to ensure that we get them right. Where we feel there were areas of gaps and challenges, we need to correct them before 2027. Because when we see the interest now, And obviously, we need to ensure that everything is in place for 2027.
Well, Mapolaba, even me, I'm trying to make a comeback for that 2027 race. So there will definitely be a lot of interest for that particular race. Have you entered for this year, or did you also miss out, like many thousand runners, for this year?
I was lucky, Kwena, because I'm one of those who are members of the CMA. So I was lucky that I was part of the first 7 days. So I entered, I think it was on the first day, on the 3rd of November. So I was lucky that I could lay my hand on an entry. So I'm happy that I'm going to be part of the starting lineup. And I'm sure that I know you with your 7 finishes, I'm almost at the point where I'm going to be having one over you.
Well, we'll talk about that. But talk to me about, in terms of the entries, and maybe before we get there, there's been some fake news that have been doing the round in terms of the changes that you're talking about, that Comrades is talking about, in terms of novices, because of the outcry and some of the news that we've been hearing. Can you clarify that in terms of, are there any changes already planned?
There are no changes. We have tried to issue a statement, I think, on Friday to try and allay fears and to encourage all our participants to ensure that whatever news that comes through, they double check with all our our social media platforms and even our app or website, so that they do not, because there's always that element of fake news. Even on the day when we're taking entries on Monday, I remember seeing another fake news post just 2 hours before we close entries, saying that entries have been taken up, when in fact we're still left with more than 2,000 entries at the time. So we try and encourage all our athletes to ensure that they verify this information through our official social media platforms and obviously our app and website before they can sort of take it as gospel truth, because there will always be that element of people taking chances and especially when riding the wave, when we it's during circumstances such as these, when we are going through these historic moments.
We're seeing about 25% of the entries being novice runners. Is that an increase? Because I think that's been part of the talk, that we're seeing more and more people interested in running the ultimate human race.
It's always been, I think it's a trend. We've been hoping that over the years, we've been working hard to ensure that at least we attract a minimum of at least 30% of our novices, but to attract 25% it augurs well for the future of the race, because as most athletes are exiting the system through most probably age or maybe retiring from running long distances or ultras, it's always important for us to also attract new. As we celebrate 100th running of the race in 2027, it's going to be interesting, because if we get new novices every year, you know that, for example, people who are going to be running the race for the first time in 2026 will be coming back in 2027 for their back-to-back medals. And obviously that would mean that if we add another 25 to 30% in 2027. That means the starting line in 2027 will be relatively athletes who are, we call younger athletes, or in other words, they are athletes that are novices or that have just started up running ultramarathons or long distances.
And it's very interesting, Mapolaba, that majority of the entries, particularly from South Africa, are from Gauteng. One would have thought that KZN would have a bigger chunk.
It's always been the case. Well, we attribute it to a variety of issues. Obviously, we do want to encourage KZN athletes to take up the home ground advantage, but we're encouraged by Gauteng. One, because Gauteng is the largest in terms, even for ASA, in terms of their provinces, is one of very few provinces with more than one provinces in one province, CGA, and obviously, so you realize that Gauteng is bigger in terms of numbers. Maybe even in terms of taking up the sport of athletics in Gauteng, it's quite popular. This year, KZN is a little bit disappointing, because last year they were just below 4,000, and I'm told by the team that this year we're just over 3,500, which is a little bit of a drop. But we're encouraged by the increase in the number of South African base numbers.
Yeah.
In terms of the international athletes, it does seem like when we gather from our international ambassadors that because of the time zone differences, some countries like Japan had a little bit of a challenge trying to log in and get those entries.
Mapalaba, unfortunately, we're out of time, but as always, thank you so much for taking time to speak to us. Appreciate your time.